Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Born Free here. Thank you so much for the incredible positivity and support over the last few days. The Goichi interview, I was so excited to get that out because it was a Dragon Ball FighterZ interview. So I'm now doing Street Fighter and Dragon Ball FighterZ, and hopefully I can do more and more games. Because at EVO, I actually did Tekken and I did a bunch of anime games and all sorts of stuff. I love getting to know these players, and I love, doing that stuff so that you feel more connected to these players as well. Now, last year, you crowdfunded me to go to NCR and to Austin DreamHack. Now, that was your idea, not mine, and I was incredibly humbled and so excited to do it, and I brought back some great interviews, I believe, including the infamous Bonchan one. This year, I'm in a similar sort of situation. I don't have the money or financial means that I had from years gone by where I could just spend all my own money on flying out and lodging and all that sort of stuff. I actually need your help. Now, you guys told me to be more aggressive about this, so I'm doing that right now, and I'm asking you for your help. There's a Patreon link down there. Check it out. If you can give me $1 a month, 500 of the thousands of you, if you gave me $1, I'd have 500 bucks and I could probably make it to NCR. I'm sure I could make it work. But anyway, I've held you up. Check out this video. It's coming one of these ways. Hey guys, it's Born Free here. Welcome to my channel. I'm here with Brian F at Final Round. How the hell are you?
Hey, doing pretty good. Enjoying the top 8, enjoying the games, having a good time.
That's right, we're actually missing top 8 at the moment.
It started right now?
I think it...
Okay, yeah, we're missing it.
I think it has, so we'll try and speed this one along.
Right.
So one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you was because you wrote a tweet recently,
right.
Which interested me. Because it said succinctly what's sort of been rattling around in my brain for a while now, which is, this idea that easy to play does not mean easy to win in a two-player game, because guess what? The other guy wants to win.
Right.
So I'm wondering, why did that tweet come about, and can you elaborate on it a little bit?
I guess it was kind of a reaction to everyone complaining, or not necessarily complaining, but being concerned with the depth of DBFZ. That was kind of when the game was first coming out, and they had their hands on the beta a little bit, and the game just dropped, and people were saying, oh, it's just ABC launcher, ABC, just that it's real basic and there's not much depth to it, which I think is turning out to be completely wrong. But I don't think that game, I didn't believe that about DBFZ, but it just really brought about that notion where, especially games like Street Fighter V, and in general, we've seen a lot of the execution requirements being dropped and a lot of simplification of mechanics, that it seems to be a clear shift in making the games easy to perform the moves. Mm-hmm. It's easy to do the combos, it's easy to do the moves, easy to use the mechanics, but it's not going to make the game easier to win. And I think there's a kind of a duality with that. So I think the design decision from a lot of fighting game developers is they want people to play the game, and they want them to have fun, especially people who don't play fighting games. And I think that's one way to make it succeed is make it easy to do things that are cool. Yeah. DBFZ has auto combos so you can just mash. I mean, if you just mash L, you do crazy explosions, cool things happen. You might not know what the hell's going on, but it's cool. But you're not going to win. You're not going to win against anyone who's 2 steps ahead of you and already knows how to do a real combo, so they do 3 times the amount of damage per hit. So, and that's where the problem comes in, is that you lose, you feel bad, and you stop playing.
Yeah.
DBFZ is really easy to play, but if someone's better than you, you don't get to play.
Yeah.
You don't get to, you get steamrolled. When I first picked up that game and I was just still mashing the auto combo, not knowing what to do, people who knew how to structure their team, you didn't play.
Yeah. And
that's why people were saying, oh, this game had an 80% drop-off, or that might not be the exact number, but it was a huge drop-off on Steam from the player base. And casuals just don't want to get steamrolled in a fighting game.
Yeah.
And no matter how easy the mechanics are to use, it's still going to happen. So I was just pointing that out because I think a lot of the FGC doesn't want these games to continue to get simpler. Yeah. And I think there's a danger in you keep making games simpler to appease an audience that isn't interested in being competitive in a fighting game.
Yeah.
And so when that happens, games may eventually suffer. It's kind of up to you to say that they are now, and we're still not retaining the audience we're going for.
Yeah. Well, we don't I don't know that I know there was an 80% drop off, but I don't know that we don't know that this game didn't recruit more people.
Right.
You know, so like there is a duality to it, right? There's a business side to it, which is like, let's make it cool for people to play for about 2 weeks until they realize it's a fighting game.
Right.
Right? And that's still going to sell, right? And that's good. That's good. That's good because, you know, ultimately that's money being made and potentially more fighting games being made in the future. Right? But what's ideal is that game has the duality you were talking about, where there's also some depth. Right? And potentially it feels like maybe Dragon Ball are getting that right. I don't know. You tell me. I mean, what do you think? Do you think they're getting it right?
I mean, time will tell. I think the game is in a good place, but what I think fighting game players who are competitive, they want the game to be supported for a longer period of time, right? Mm-hmm. But say DBFZ was that shallow, and then they didn't retain the casual audience. It was still like the greatest, the best-selling fighting game of all time or something, or this current generation. It outsold pretty much every modern fighting game easily. So they don't necessarily have the incentive to continue to push DLC and updates to that dedicated hardcore audience. They've already made their money. They can cash out now and do DBFZ 2. And they don't have to add any depth to it. They just have to add new characters and new things that you can do easily, and then get that wave of people who play for 2 weeks, and then they say, oh, there's no more content to the game, I'm done. That's one of the most common things you see for casual people. It's like, oh, there's no content, because the content is getting good at the game and beating other players, and that doesn't click for 80% of players. They just drop it. So it's as a business model, it's probably really successful. But there is a bit, I guess, of that anxiety amongst the hardcore community of finding that balance of bringing in new players and also developing a game that has competitive depth to push people to continue to develop the meta and also be supported. So all those things need to be balanced. And I guess there was a little bit of a question about that when the game first dropped.
Yeah, it seems like all of the companies have one element nailed. If you know what I mean. Yeah, you've got like you know, as we know, Street Fighter came out, you know, half baked, but it's got lots of support. Yes. Or you know, and we should be thankful for that. And then we've got this game, and we're not so sure. They're a bit cagey about. They're like, we're thinking about esports. When I say this game, I mean Dragon Ball. And then, but you have got. I mean, you've got some developers who are working at it, but you're right. They tend to rotate games very quickly. So NRS rotates games very quickly. Right. So I don't know that there's any easy answers in regards to player retention. One of the things I was going to say, that because like I said, this has been rattling around in my head, is that I thought Capcom did this commercial a long time ago. When Street Fighter V first came out, which I thought was very interesting, where they actually managed players' expectations, where they actually kind of the commercial kind of said, guess what? It's going to be really tough, but it's going to be worth it. You know? Do you think that? Do you subscribe to that idea that we shouldn't be telling people, hey, you can win easy? We should be telling people, hey, by the way, it's going to be fun, but you're also going to hit a wall and it's going to be hard. Like, manage your expectations in some way, so that when they do lose, maybe they don't feel bad.
Well, for expectations, fighting game players, you're always going to lose no matter who you are. And for beginners or advanced players, you're going to get bodied, and there's going to be times where it's brutal. So I don't think it's necessarily about managing expectations for, hey, when you get into this game, it's tough. Like Dark Souls kind of does that. They kind of capitalize, like, wow, our game is so hard, and that's like a marketing scheme for it, and then people are fanatics about the game. It's a bit different than that when it's a 1v1.
Yeah, because it's another person.
Yeah, it's another person.
It's personal.
It's very personal, and it's not like you can retry it. Like Dark Souls, they set you back and you got to start over, but you're still there. You're still trying again. I mean, in Street Fighter, you can get 2-0'd, you're done. You might never see that person ever again, and there's no redemption. What I feel like should be done is just a better focus on matchmaking systems.
Oh, yeah.
People who are beginners should be accurately matched with beginners with good netcode and an enjoyable experience where these levels are managed. And that way, at least if they get bodied with someone within their level, the next time they play, it's someone they can actually compete with. How you go about doing that, I don't know. But the matchmaking system is what really can cause people to quit early.
I totally agree with you, because actually, funnily enough, like there's a lot of things I love about Dragon Ball FighterZ, but the matchmaking system, I think my experience has not been very good in the casuals. This wasn't in ranked, this was in casuals. Ranked might be different, but I haven't actually played much ranked. But I was getting matched up with people who are like way better, have more experience, and I was just getting bodied, and it sent me back to the training room, because I'm a fighting game player, so I actually don't really mind losing. But yeah, I agree with you. Matchmaking.
Get over the hump. The problem is, especially in a 3v3 game, if you aren't on the level, you don't get to play at all.
Yeah.
Like, you just sit there and watch yourself get beat up, and that's if you follow Scrub Quotes on Twitter, it's a gold mine, especially when DBFZ first came out. Just people I just sit here and watch myself get infinitely comboed. Like, why did I even buy this game? And that's how most people feel. And it's a hard balance to strike, because with 1v1 fighting games, people want instant queue times. They want to be able to play fast and keep getting games, but you also can't have people match out of their league. And with other games, it's a bit easier to handle, especially games like League of Legends, because people are willing to wait 40 minutes to play one game, because that game will also last 40 minutes. They'll sit there in queue time and get matched up with people to play out a long game. Fighting games can end in 2 minutes, and it's unacceptable to wait for someone with a good connection and your skill level near you, and any other arbitrary parameters you set to get that one quality match. So I don't know how they could achieve it, but I think that's a huge hurdle for the FGC right now, is that online experience. And how do you get people starting to play in a competitive environment without totally crushing their spirit? Because that's kind of how fighting games were before, but if we want to continue to grow, which may or may not be everyone's exact goal, but that's how it has to be done. You have to find some way to bring people up to speed, not just totally crush them right away.
No, I think matchmaking is a huge deal, because you get someone in the same level, you at least can win 50% of the matches, and that's fine for a lot of people, because they're like, well, I lost this, but they can make some excuses for it, and they or they can learn from it. But they can revel in their wins. But getting beaten down consistently over and over again, and not understanding why, is a problem. I guess the other thing that would be helpful is, I think we've all talked about this ad nauseum, is better tutorials, better ways of allowing people to actually understand what the hell is going on. How you feel about that?
Well, that would definitely be a start, because even in DBFZ, there are so many hidden mechanics that I had no idea about until I play while streaming, so the chat would just tell me things, and I'm like, I did not know this was a thing. I've been playing for 3 weeks. I didn't know this mechanic even existed, or I didn't understand it. And I went through the DBFZ tutorial, and they don't teach you that. Or it comes and goes like that, in one ear out the other. It's like you do it once and you're done. So I don't, and I'm already doing 15 new things in a row, and it's like a checklist that you're completing, so you kind of forget it right away. So is a starting point, but even then, everyone knows it doesn't really matter how much you you train as much as you can, then you hop into ranked, and then it all falls apart, right? So you still need to have that online experience, which is what fighting game players want. We want it to be difficult, because that's what makes achieving your victory worthwhile. So that's why I think fighting games are always going to be the sort of catch-22, where we want to grow, but you have to make some concessions if you want the player base to continue to grow. Or do you keep it, more in the traditional difficult game sense, and possibly sacrifice growing your player pool?
Well, I mean, the issue with that, again, is double-sided sword, I suppose. It's the issue with keeping it difficult is, and it potentially not growing, is that businesses go, this isn't profitable, we're not going to make any more fighting games. So yeah,
exactly.
I don't think we have the answers, but interesting conversation anyway. But certainly I do agree with you that people are getting a little bit confused between easy to play and easy to win.
Right.
And I don't think companies help by marketing games as easy to win, because that's what they kind of tend to infer, Let's talk about something else. Another hot topic this weekend. Oh, actually, one last thing on that. Do you think? How about the whole teams thing? Because that's something that people have talked about. Is a lot of these other games are much more popular because you play in a team with maybe your friends, maybe a group of people. But the point is, it's never all on you. Mm-hmm. Whether you lose, if you win, you can sort of pretend that it was you.
Right.
Like it's a different dynamic.
Oh yeah.
Do you? How do you feel about teams?
That's a huge reason why people have such a hard time getting into fighting games. It's all you. It's all you. And with teams, there's this whole they disperse responsibility across a number of people, and you can pick and choose in your mind how much you're responsible for. How much of that win am I responsible for? How much for that loss am I responsible for? And you can kind of just blame so many other factors besides yourself. So I think that's a huge component of it. And that's also why matchmaking too. Matchmaking is easier with team games because you're allowed to have longer queue times. The format of them is usually a longer game where there's more interactions between opponents. Fighting games, it's all you, and it could be over in an instant. So,
but my question for you is, and that's I agree with all of that. My question for you is, team fighting games, like team battle or whatever it's called in Street Fighter, for instance, which unfortunately doesn't have an online component, which I think is one of the biggest mistakes they've made. But also, it's great that they brought it in. Maybe they're working on it, no idea. How do you feel about that? I know it's more turn-based, so it's not quite the same, but
that's, to me, it's like a party mode. I don't know. For me, I feel like 2v2 cross Tekken at EVO was one of the biggest injustices that game ever received. I don't like the concept of a team, like actual multiple people playing in a fighting game, because that's I feel like why people play fighting games is because it's you. It's all up to you. And I think that's both what drives people away and what draws people to it, and what makes it so powerful for so many people. So I'm sure it's possible to develop a fighting game like that where it's actually team-based instead of like turn-taking with like Street Fighter team battle. It's possible. It's not something that, I'm sounding like an old man. I don't like change, right? It's not something like I'm at all interested in. I like it being, it's just you and it's all up to you. And if you fail, it's only yourself that you can blame, and you have to move on from there. If I had a teammate, I could be like, man, you suck. You cost us the game.
Haven't you done teams? You've done teams for Red Bull and stuff, haven't you?
Yeah, like team tournaments are a bit different, I suppose, but it's a good format for some events. I wouldn't want it to be the standard, and it's hype, and it builds some camaraderie with your team.
But you're also already accomplished high-level players.
Yeah, we all have our own accomplishments that we've done on our own, and so I wouldn't want that ever to be the standard format. If it got to the point where teams was actually considered like a main event, more like how the Smash community does it, where they have team battles, the 2v2 tournament is actually like a big part of every Smash event. Like on Friday, and they do those events, and there's money, and it's streamed, and people care about it, and there's known teams, like people build a reputation for being a good team. That would be interesting, but it's because it's actually 2v2 in the game.
Yeah.
The whole rotating players around, people always swap teams, it's just not taken with the same amount of like seriousness. Like people don't really put too much stock in it.
Sure.
So I don't think that's going to change with traditional fighting games anytime soon, and it's not something I would like to see become the main format. It could be treated with more respect and maybe more money on the line to get people to care, but I'd like that to be more of a once in a while marquee event where they have teams as the main event and keep it separate from the main FGC format, like how Red Bull did. That was an amazing event, but it was its own special thing. It wasn't replacing our whole solo tournament structure, which I still think is the driving force for why fighting game players continue to play.
Sure. All right, so let's move on to another hot topic this weekend. Controversial topic, I don't know. I think that's something that people have all been complaining about, which is Abigail, right? So I'm calling it the Abigail problem, but I'm not a high-level player, so I don't know if it's real or not. Can you give me your perspective on it?
Yeah, I mean, as a Season 2 Balrog player, I feel like Abigail is the new Season 2 Balrog, so I feel you Abigail players. Just my advice is to just keep playing. and keep making people upset, right? Like, there's nothing else you can do as a player in that position. But I really hate that mentality of discrediting players based on the character. There are issues with balance in every fighting game, and buffing your character does immensely help. Like, you will see shuffling the placing of players and new players rising up because of that. That is a real thing. But these players that you're seeing popping up, they were still amazing players playing other characters, or maybe the character wasn't as strong, so they struggle in certain matchups. They still know how to play, and it's still up to you to learn how to fight against them. So I don't consider it so much of a problem. Abigail is really strong and can be very frustrating to fight against, but no character in Street Fighter V is so broken to the point where it's unwinnable. Like, you need to play high tier, I think, to be winning tournaments. It's just a fact of life in the majority of fighting games. But he's still beatable, and yeah, the fact that like the whole Twitter FGC community is like, oh, this person lost to Abigail. It's like, no, they lost to the player playing as Abigail. Yeah. Maybe they lost to this matchup because they weren't as prepared for it, or because Abigail, a strong character against their character, but the players still beat them.
Well, you play a bit of Abigail, right? So what I want to ask you is, from what you've seen, do you feel like people are still unaware of answers? Like they haven't labbed it.
Somewhat. It's not, yeah, I guess Abigail's a little special where sometimes there's no answers, right? He does checkmate you a little bit more common than most characters can.
Okay.
And it's all about balancing how much damage you want to take, right? Take the unblockable, be put into a bad guessing situation, or try to avoid it, mess up, and eat 50% damage, right? So I wouldn't say that most players are that unprepared in certain answers. It's just, I think it's overall strategy. Like, you saw how NL double perfected Storm Kubo with Cammy. If you don't let Abigail play, he does have poor defense. So you can maul him and prevent him from even getting started. So there's strategy to approach the matchup. But yeah, he does kind of checkmate people sometimes. So he's pretty messed up, but he's not a pick up and win character like people make him out to be.
Okay. Maybe
for some strong players who are able to adapt quickly to new characters, but I guarantee you any of the random Twitter monsters who are out there saying, oh, I give no credit to Abigail players for winning. If you try it yourself, you're going to get mauled hard until you finally get over that learning curve. He's very strong, but the players who are winning with him have put in work with him for a while. Yeah. And it's not players you've never heard of unless you've been living under a rock.
Well, there's certainly no Abigails in top 8, so
right.
I guess we'll see what happens as the game develops. Talking of the game developing, it's Arcade Edition. What are your thoughts on this version of the game? Like, positives and negatives?
I just feel like not much has changed, except I think the top tier is a bit more ahead. I actually think this version is a little bit more in balance in some ways. I feel like the top tier is definitely a step above the mid tier, but the mid tier pool is a lot larger now. Season 2, I think, had a very chaotic sense of balance because the game was it was all about robbery, but a lot of characters could do that. So I think in some ways it was balanced in a very stressful sense where anyone can win and anyone can lose at any moment, besides like absolute bottom tier. So the game is kind of more or less the same, except, yeah, I think there's a little bit more emphasis on playing characters like Rashid, Akuma, Minot, Cammy, like those characters. Oh, Guile. The characters that can bring consistency amongst the chaos of Street Fighter V. And those characters, I think, are floating up more and more away from the rest of the cast. And I think Abigail's like the wrench in that whole consistency.
So, I don't know if you've thought about this, you may not have, but like, in the future, are there any mechanics or anything that you would change, or would it just be balancing characters more, or, what would you be looking at if you were trying to update this game?
Yeah, if I were to try to make things more interesting, I'm not a game designer, so I don't have any in-depth mechanics to suggest to Capcom, but with the way they've already been showing how they do their patches, I feel like a lot of the patches in the past have just been done just because we have a yearly cycle where we're required to have balance updates. So some of the changes feel artificial, and some of them seem really knee-jerk at the same time. So I just hope if they do a 3.5, it's nothing knee-jerk where characters get nerfed off the map. I hope characters like Abigail don't get the nerf hammer too hard. I just think with a few small tweaks to some of the higher tier characters, you can make this version a lot more balanced. But that's not usually what people want. They're usually out for blood. So I'm not sure what Capcom will decide to do, but if I were to try to keep with the same format, just small tweaks. Just make a few things easier to deal with. Maybe make Abigail's jump not so ridiculous, A few things that are a little bit on the nose. Rashid's crouching heavy punch is still kind of crazy. His corner pressure's a bit much. Akuma, at some point, maybe an adjustment. Eventually, maybe Cammy.
He got nerfed.
Maybe he got changed. He's adjusted. I don't know if I would say
he got horrendously nerfed. His forward heavy punch got nerfed.
It was adjusted. Yeah, the risk reward is a little bit different, as in there's a lot more reward for a character like Akuma. Yeah, so I think in this version the top tier is definitely showing itself, showing its true colors, and I think we can start looking at tournament results more and more often to really see how the balance lies. I know it's a taboo thing to say. Don't look at tournament results to see balance, but I think over the past 3 years of Street Fighter, we've seen the same top tier characters, aside from a few in Season 1, and they're still there, they're still rocking, and I think we could give other characters a more fair chance with just a few small tweaks.
That's fair enough. I want to ask you about how you're handling this year. So, your boy got the nerf hammer for sure. Yeah. It sounds like you've been playing a bit of Abigail. How are you handling it this year? What characters are you using, and what characters are you intending to use as you go forward?
I did play Abigail in Season 2, and I had a lot of fun playing him. I haven't played him much in Season 3 since I started playing DBFZ, and I just didn't have the time to build up my confidence with two characters, with a new patch, and learn all the matchups, and play a new game at the same time. So I may consider playing Abigail more in the future, but I mostly just want to grind out Balrog more. I mean, that's my character. That's who I click with. The only issue with him is he's really, really honest, this version, I feel like. And the V-Trigger 1 shenanigans don't work with a lot of not characters, but players. Players have figured that out. You're not going to see as many V-Trigger resets liquidating life bars. And his access to damage is gone. Like, he really has to land a big hit, not a random crush counter. Like, actually legitimately somehow find a hit to be able to get access to damage. So he's honest, which I don't think is good in a competitive sense. So I don't see myself playing any of the other top tier characters besides Abigail. But the main game plan for now is stick with Balrog, learn the matchups better, and do what I can carrying the character instead of having the character carry me.
Fair enough. So you're definitely not looking at like another character?
No. I'm not a fan of the other go-to top tier picks besides Abigail. So I would play him more. But it's scary. It's scary playing a different character in tournament, and Abigail definitely gets mauled if you're not on point. So while he can liquidate life bars, sometimes you also don't get to play. And there's always that doubt in the back of your mind, like, I would be able to handle that with Balrog, right, with my other main, which is something I've struggled with since playing Street Fighter 4 in 2012. So this season I might consider that, but I just want to focus right now on Balrog.
Okay. Let me ask you about the new characters, Sakura and Blanka.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts? Good, bad, interesting? You scared of him? Not scared of him?
I'm scared of any new character because I lose against new characters horribly until I get beat by them over and over. So I was actually really worried about having a Blanka in my pools this tournament. I was very concerned about that because everyone says it's supposed to be like 8-2 for Balrog, but if I don't play a matchup consistently, I have no idea what's going on, and I can't freestyle it. The new characters like Sakura and Blanka, they just seem solid and honest, which is a common theme I think they're going with this season so far, which means they're mid-tier, right?
I mean, every single DLC character they've ever released feels like they're mid-tier, apart from Akuma, who took a while to master.
Abigail, Manal.
Abigail. Well, yeah, those. Okay. All right.
So,
but I feel like they play on most of them. They play on the safe side usually.
Well, like Colleen, Ed, and Zeku were definitely on the safe side, and then Colleen was.
And people didn't know about Guile, like you know.
Well, I feel like Guile. That was some ignorance on the community's part. Guile is basic, but Guile's always basic, and he's super strong, and he brought order to a game like Street Fighter V, which is chaotic. So that one, I feel like people were just ignoring the fact that he can actually shut down people from going nuts, which is so strong in this game. But yeah, for half of Season 2, they played it safe. But so we'll see what the rest of Season 3 is like, you're right. But so far, they seem as mostly grounded characters with decent normals. Sakura is a little bit more scary for me since her walk speed is insane and her standing light kick is like full screen and it's 4 frames. So you can't dash punch her as a Balrog player. It's impossible. She always walks into range to make it punishable or ice skates backwards and then it whiffs and she punishes you. Yeah. So the characters are annoying in some sense and they're kind of strong ground game, but that's about it. I don't know if they necessarily have the dirt or the control to really compete at a high level. But they're still going to be in tournament. They're not going to be like Alex tier. Yeah, they'll be around.
Yeah. I talked to Gunfight earlier actually.
Not happy.
Yeah, I think he might make a switch.
Right.
And if he makes a switch, that's a big deal. Of the new characters, Falca, Cody, G, and Sagat. Which ones are you interested in? And of the returning characters, are you worried or excited or?
I have a feeling like Sagat's gonna be busted because I think that they've been holding off for so long, adding him to the game. They're not gonna risk making him like safe and not really building the hype for that. I think he's gonna come out strong just to please the people. So I guess I'm a little bit worried about how he'll come out, but I also have Balrog who avoids fireballs free, so I might be okay. As far as the characters I'm excited about, I guess G, because what is he? Who is he? And I'm not excited at all for Falca, however you say her name.
Yeah, it's like German for Falcon.
She looks like Bison's like henchman number 3. I don't know. I have absolutely no interest in her whatsoever, and I don't like characters with stakes because Rolento was the biggest piece of crap ever in Street Fighter 4, and I just don't want that back in the game.
Well, the theory is that one of the theories is because Falca means falcon in German, and she has a stick. She is somehow related, or in playstyle potentially, or some other way, to Eagle, who had a sticks, I believe, or a stick. I can't remember exactly.
This is Street Fighter, not Soul Calibur. Like, get the weapons out of here. I don't want to see any of that. Also, I don't understand why people are so hyped for her, and they're like making predictions about her playstyle. She never existed before, right? Am I wrong about that?
I think it's the Manat effect.
Like, I don't understand why people are making assumptions. Like, wow, she's gonna do this, and the third. I'm like, we have no clue who she is. I've heard so many people talk about, her Rekkas are going to be +2 on Blanka.
Really?
People are just saying all kinds of things and really excited about her, and it's going over my head.
I don't know where that information is coming from. It could be rumors or whatever.
No, they're just making it up, but they act like there's a community building around this character, and she seems so boring. So boring. So she's like Ed. Ed was the most boring character to ever be added to Street Fighter, in my opinion. Even the name Ed.
Really?
Ed. His name is Ed. You might as well put me in the game, Brian, and I'm just regular guy Brian.
I think you're focusing too much on the name. I think he's interesting because of the story. Like when he was picked up by.
It would be interesting if he was still a little kid. Like if he was still a kid and then he was super buff, like had all the psycho powers and really strong, but he's just a dude with a hood on.
I mean, I actually kind of think he's cool, but whatever. All right, so you're actually playing a little bit of DBFZ. Is that the only? You've been playing a bit. You were playing a bit of Tekken as well, right?
Yeah, I was just pressing buttons.
Okay, so with Dragon Ball, is that something that is just messing around with, or do you think you maybe like, oh, I'm kind of interested in maybe competing a bit?
No, I'm going to compete. I'm not saying I'm good at the game, but I do plan on, like, it's like a new journey, right? I do plan on competing and practicing and trying to do well in tournaments.
Do you have a team yet?
I feel like I shouldn't say because...
Okay, don't say that. It's fine. It's fine.
I'll let them... It's 16 Cell Vegeta, so I'm playing the Balrog Abigail of DBFZ.
16 Cell Vegeta. You know what? That's the team I'm messing around with as well because it's just so...
It's pretty cheap.
I mean, it's also
really cheap.
It's super cheap, but it's also like I think it's one way to learn the game. Although I was told yesterday, if you really want to learn the game in the most simple way, just pick Saiyans. But I've been trying to get that Vortex down,
right?
Because it's insane.
Yeah.
It's insane.
I mean, if you think like the Street Fighter V community is bad about Abigail, like play that team in the DBFZ community. Yeah. They're way more toxic. So much more hate for playing that team.
I bet.
But I mean, hold that, right?
That's funny. Yeah, that's funny. What about any of the new games? You're interested? Like, you've got Blaze Blue Cross Tag Battle, got Soul Calibur 6, got EX Fighting Leia, got a lot of indies. Any of those games have you thought, interesting?
No. It's a miracle I picked up DBFZ because I usually never stray from Street Fighter, and that's definitely as anime as I ever plan on getting. Yeah. I mean, for now. The bug, I am kind of like bit by the bug, so there is maybe down the road because I did an instant air dash and I felt it.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I know, right? It does. So last time we spoke, right, you were, I would say, you were more like Brian F. the streamer, right?
Right.
And now I think you're more like Brian F. the tournament player and streamer, right?
Right.
Are you going to be traveling to all the tournaments this year? Like, what's your plan this year?
I'm definitely going to be traveling to guaranteed every U.S. CPT premiere, like that one's in Canada as well. I'm sponsored with the UYU now, so they're helping.
Oh, yeah.
They're really helping out, getting around. So it's it's not just me streaming and trying to use that to help get me places. So I mean, last season I really pushed for it. I came up just short. So I think this season it's going to be kind of the same game plan: living in an airport, calling off work when I can, working from hotel rooms in between, and saying I'm working from home, and then I'm just making the push. And still definitely Brian F. the streamer. I think I kind of want to ride that wave as long as possible because
great.
I just want to like make sure that the opponent feels like they're losing to someone who just plays at home online. Because then the pressure is always on them to win. Yeah. So I want to keep that mentality as long as possible before it becomes, Brian F., like, he has to win.
Yeah.
So as long as I can keep the pressure on them, like, I don't want to lose this guy who plays online. It's better for me.
Yeah, fair enough. So that obviously takes up a lot of time. Is there anything else, anything new, any fun hobbies, movies, like other video games, stuff that's in your life?
I mean, this is like 2 jobs and a half, right? So it's pretty busy. I work full time, then I stream part time, and then the other time it's hitting an airport to get the tournaments. So aside from DBFZ, which is I'm learning how to balance multiple games, and that's a struggle. So I'm gonna have to really find a way to make both work since there's a lot to learn for Street Fighter V. But other than that, it's back to the grind.
Back to the grind, people. All right, well, awesome. As always, it's a pleasure.
Thank you.
And we'll see you guys next time.